It's a black screen. Here we go. Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Higurashi Kageboushi. Last episode was the meeting, getting Tomoe on board with the investigation, where they had the four people meeting, including Tomoe's future brother-in-law, the chief of police of the station at Angel Mort. It was a good meme episode with some mainly held the meme energy with a little bit of investigation at the end. Now we're on Friday, July 1st, 1983. I don't know if this is. This is forward. Yeah, this was forward. We looked this up. So maybe a day or two later while they're investigating. And the following day. Okay, literally a day after. Glad they cleared it up because I'm horrible at remembering the dates. Based on the list provided by Kakuchi Station, Oishi-san and I began to investigate the Hinamizawa natives living in Kakuchi City. And they did get a list of um, every native. There were a total of 74 domestic families from Hinamizawa currently living in Kakuchi City. While it wasn't a lot, it would still be impossible to get through all of them in a short time frame. So, on Oishi-san's suggestion, we narrowed the list down to the households who relocated from Hinamizawa after the dam conflict began 5 years ago, and we began our investigations there. That is smart. I guess there would be people who migrated before that. You'd think they would start with Kimiyoshi though, since it's such a big name, but this is probably like methodically better. But there's still quite a few people. Thankfully, Chief Inspector Minai agreed to cooperate with the investigation, so that somewhat reduced the weight of the load, but it would still be a challenge to burn through the entire list. Umayado. Isn't this, I mean, they use this background for Nagisa's, that's not her name, not Nagisa, Natsumi's neighborhood. I don't know why I said Nagisa. Arrived in Umeyada town where subjects on the list were relatively concentrated. There was a large station nearby and an emergency residential area where the recent constructed a new shopping district. Oh, I totally forgot this, man. When yeah, this completely slipped my mind. When they say Kakuchi City, it isn't a city. It's basically the whole province. Or maybe not province, but a large area in the prefecture. I know this because I didn't think of it like recently, but I had this problem in the at the start of the not consarts, the main arcs when they were saying Shishibone City. I thought when they meant Shishibone, they just meant a city, but it's like I think it is like a province, but that might be prefectures. It's like a larger area because Hinamizawa is in Shishibone City, while Okonomi is also in Shishibone City and a couple other towns and villages. So it's a wider area, so that's why it's harder because it's spread across bigger. So okay, it's good to establish that. I haven't thought about that in a while, so kind of just slipped my mind. While exiting the station, I held a map in hand and searched for the target's house. The Akasaka's visiting Natsumi this time. Umayada town apparently wasn't designed systematically, so the roads were complex. On top of that, the many similarly styled buildings made it hard to catch my bearings, so I could easily get lost if I got careless. Let me pop the volume up too. Match that shit. Just as I thought, my eyes stopped at a dead end and supporting my fears. So I retraced my steps back to the main avenue. I saw two housewives holding supermarket bags walk past. I felt relieved when I saw them and I decided to ask for directions. Alright, what house? Nope, it's the Hatakeyamas, not Kimiyoshi's. I bet Oishi would want a piece of that Akisaka, specifically. Did the... I mean, it couldn't have happened already. Their smiles vanished, and they made strange expressions as they looked around and stared at me. Even though I was a stranger, their reactions seemed unnatural. Are they dead already? It was the name of an old man who moved from Hinamizawa to Umayado last year. After hearing that, the housewife with the longer hair pointed toward a place around the corner. Okay, they're not dead, they're just prejudiced. Classic, honestly. Oh my god, those creepy people have friends? What the fuck's wrong with them? Actually, Hinamiza racism again. So weird. I can't imagine that. It's like, I mean, okay, sure, there's kind of a rivalry between Canadians and French Canadians, but I don't think it degrades itself into being serious. Though, honestly, probably there are parts where they are seriously hate each other. I don't know, it just feels so weird. Though it is also older Japan, so, anyways. The two of them backed away with looks of disgust on their faces, like they were trying to distance themselves from something dirty. For the time being, I bowed my head and walked away feeling unhappy. Yeah, I'd feel weird about it too. Even so, I couldn't help but wonder what they were so spooked about. Oh, by creepy house, maybe it has the ritualistic stuff on it. Like what was happening. Yeah, probably something like that. With that question in the back of my mind, I made my way around the corner they directed me to. And then I discovered why the housewives called the house creepy. It was a strikingly bizarre sight. When I saw the Hatateyama house, one thing immediately jumped into my eyes. The life-size human-shaped white paper figures. 5 of them were hanging from a persimmon tree in the garden, fluttering like Tanabata decorations. I mean, that is pretty creepy. I just don't know why you'd look like be disgusted. I don't know, it's creepy. I will admit that. Each bore the name of a family member. They were like human effigies, with each containing a person's name handwritten on the middle of the paper. Kazuma Hatakeyama, an old man from Hinamizawa who should be turning 70 soon. The one hanging next to it bore the name of his son, Masuo, and the figure belonging to Masuo's wife, Yoshiko, was hanging on the next branch over. And then there were 2 smaller figures bearing the names Aoi and Kentaro. Checking against the list, those were the names of the family's grandchildren, who were 10 and 5 years old, respectively. The papers containing the names of the entire family fluttered in the wind, like regular strips of paper. Flutter, 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 flutter. No, those 5 pieces weren't the only ones. Looking around, I saw separate sets of 5 paper figures hanging everywhere. They were in the small garden plants too, and around the neck of a petunia blooming in a planter. I also noticed particular letters written on the outer wall of the house. Bold black ink characters were written all about. They were difficult to read because they were scribbled and faded, but it was enough effort I was able to read them. O benevolent one, O great god Oyashiro, grant us this purity. Cleanse us with purity, hear us, your fear will cleanse us. Incomprehensible words, like a magic spell. Could it be some sort of Shinto prayer? The name Oyasho-sama was also written on the gatepost, the gate door, and so on, as if to fill every crevice with a prayer. Why is he here? Why is he not in the retirement home thingy, the care center? At that moment, the voice of the cicadas was drowned out by a low, muffled sound coming from an unknown location. Oh, here we go again. The hoarse, unnatural voice of an old man echoed from inside the house. I struggled to keep my dark thoughts in check, but I calmly pushed the doorbell. After waiting for a while, a man in his mid-40s opened the door. Just a crack. Oh, mid-40s. Bro, why did it sound like a gun? I know they don't have guns there. That's probably the son, Masuo Hatateyama. He seemed to be alarmed and turned his attention to me. The prayer from the back of the house sounded louder and more clear than before. Oh. When I showed him my police badge, Masuo suddenly became very frightened. He jumped back and his complexion changed. Oh, did they kill someone already? It was openly suspicious behavior. He was acting like he had something to hide. Oh. Masuo seemed restless. He was fidgeting and his eyes were running left and right. I wonder what was wrong. What could he be so afraid of? Ooh. Really? As soon as I said that, he opened his bloodshot eyes wide and slammed the door shut with a menacing look. Immediately afterwards, I also heard rough sounds of the door locking. The rejection was far beyond my expectation, so I could only stand there in shock. I could still hear the low voice of the prayer from inside the house. Here we go. Let him flex. He continued to repeat those strange words. No wonder the neighbors were so creeped out. Anyway, even though he left Hinamizawa, he still lived in fear of the curse tied to that disaster. Okay, maybe I take back the rude neighbors thing. It is very weird and creepy. I'm just used to them just hating Hinamizans because they think they're weird and creepy. But when they're actually doing weird shit like this, then sure. I guess it would be kind of weird. Was the existence of Oyasho-sama so deeply rooted in their hearts? Not gonna like write some notes or shit. How the other guy was being sussy. Oh. I let out a sigh and made my way to the gate, but found a woman in her late 30s and a young girl standing there. Hello. The girl lived, right? Everyone else died. Since they appear to be returning home, those two must be Masuo's wife, Yoshiko, and their daughter, Aoi. A steel blade was on her little back, and based on how nicely Yoshiko was dressed, I did speculate that she and her daughter just got back from a parent-teacher conference or something at school.
どなたですか?
Just like Masuo, Yoshiko cautiously looked over my whole body. The girl and Esther curiously looked up at her mother.
うちに何か
畠山よしこさんですね。
それが何か。
あなたはお嬢さんの葵ちゃんだね。
After Aoi answered, she immediately hid behind Yoshiko. Classic little kid in anime. She was timidly staring at me as though she wanted to ask how I knew her name.
私こういうものなんですが。
Huh? When I showed Yoshiko my police badge, her expression completely changed. She reacted just like Masuo. Did I kill somebody? Yo, imagine if the grandfather's already dead. And I mean, it wouldn't really make sense. And Atasato was just imagining it, but he never heard of him before, so it doesn't really make sense.
うちのものが何か?
Unless maybe they got the warning that the police are snooping Hinamizawans.
ちょっとですね。お話を伺いたいと。
Yoshiko glared at me for a while. Aoi continued clinging to her mother's waist with a frown on her face.
何のお話でしょうか?
こちらのご家族はひなみ沢出身だと。
話すことは何もございません。お引き取りください。
Rejected. Then, as soon as the word Hinamizawa came out, Yoshiko pushed me away, grabbed her daughter's hand, and headed toward the entrance. Thinking that reaction was excessive, I immediately rushed over and looked her in the eyes.
ちょっと待ってください。私はただお話を伺いたいだけなんです。お時間は取らせませんから。どうか。
Yoshiko tried to pull the keys out of her bag to unlock the front door, but she was in too much of a hurry and fumbled with the keys. Aoi continued tightly gripping on her mother's hand, looking up at me with a frightened expression. Her innocent face overlapped with Miyuki's for a second. Sorry. Atasato does that a lot. And I suddenly gasped. Then just when she drew her hand away from Yoshiko and looked away with an uncomfortable expression, after hearing that unexpected question from the child, I looked back, but struggled to find the words to reply. Looking closely, her eyes weren't just filled with the fear from a moment ago, but it also seemed to be trying to say something. Bro, someone did something fucked up. Did they kill her brother or something?
いや、違うよ。私たちは困った人を助けに来ているんだ。
Aoi's eyes wandered in thought after hearing that. Then she lifted her head as though she had decided something. Snitch, snitch! Unfortunately, the moment Aoi opened her mouth, Yoshiko interrupted by yelling at her. The threatening attitude caused her to cower and tremble. What the hell happened to the people in this house? It wasn't just Yoshiko. This girl knew something too, and in my eyes, the way she nervously looked up at me seemed like she was suppressing the urge to say something. The mother finally succeeded in unlocking the door and dragged Aoi into the house. The front door made a terrible sound as it slammed shut. Then I could hear the sound of it violently locking and the chain being set. The neighborhood grew quiet again. I was stunned for a while by what happened, but with no other options, I let out a dreary sigh and turned around. But just then, what, the sun comes? Oh my god. I sensed the peculiar presence of another person, so I hid in the nearby alley. Who dat? Oh no. Hanyu shadow? Even though it's not her, it's just her shadow. There was nobody there. The presence I sensed a moment ago was just an illusion, and it faded away. Thinking that over, I stopped for a while to carefully listen to my surroundings. But of course, I could only hear the howl of the cicadas and the faint sounds coming from the back of the Hatakeyama house. He's still going hard. It was the deep voice of the old man Kazuma Hatakeyama still reciting that prayer. I checked several other houses afterwards. However, no one was home, or at least they were pretending not to be home. Either way, there's nobody for me to question. Well, at the end of the day, I returned to the Kakuchi police station. On the way back to the temporary desk Chief Inspector Manai set up for me, I noticed Oishi-chan. Yeah, probably shouldn't say that. Oishi-san chatting with a woman in the break room. It sounded like the voice of a woman I spoke on the radio earlier, Chief Inspector Manai's sister, Madoka-san. Yeah, that's those two never met. Madoka just dropped off Manai. Or even just brought her to the chief. Yo. Hello. Look at this new police station that looks like they're in the kitchen. Or I guess they met? I guess that could reference they met too. It's a little ambiguous. Madoka-san rushed to her feet and grabbed a damp towel on the fridge. I accepted it with thanks and pressed it against my sweltering face. The cold towel felt soothing and refreshing. Madoka waved to Oishi-san and bowed to me, then headed out of the break room. After that send-off, Oishi-san let out a tired sigh and lit a cigarette. I bought 2 cans of coffee from the vending machine and sat one in front of Oishi-san. He gave me a confused look for a moment, as if he didn't understand what I meant, but he quickly figured it out and smiled bashfully while waving his hands. Good one. That's Oishi-san's bros, girl, okay? They seem like homies. She's literally getting married. Maybe he doesn't know that, though. Wait, he really thought that? Jesus. Yeah. I apologize meekly. It seemed I jumped to a hasty conclusion there. Thought he was putting on the moves. Oishi still got it? Even so, Madoka-san and Oishi-san seemed rather well acquainted for the two people who would rarely interact on police-related matters, so I thought it might have been something else going on there.
ちょいと人生相談を引き受けていただけですよ。彼女のね。
人生相談。
多分遅かれ早かれ赤坂さんもお聞きになると思いますがね。彼女もうすぐ結婚するんですよ。
それはおめでたいことですね。
Oh man, it's time I switch to the meme music in a little.
ねえ
For sure.
確かにいいお話です。ただその結婚にはお姉さんが猛烈に反対しているらしくて、現在もまだ延期中なんですよ。それで悩み相談ってわけです。
お姉さん、見ない警部がですか？
The face of the witty chief inspector flashed through my mind for a moment. Indeed, as the older sister, she was probably looking out for her little sister when she took a hard stance against Madoka's fiancé.
しかし、そんなに反対するってことは、よほど相手が悪いんですか？
I mean, arguably, it's pretty objectionable, but at the end of the day, it's up to Madoka and him. It could be a good or bad decision. I mean, he's the chief of police. At least it won't be like a super bad decision. At least like in the sense that he's a bad guy. Because just from his position and what we've learned about him, he seems like a good enough guy. The other elements of the relationship are, we're in the dark, though.
いえいえ、相手は人格、社会的地位ともに立派な人ですよ。なんて言ったって警察署署長さんなんですから。
The bomb.
え
The choke up. Yeah, I knew that was coming. Literally newt. I immediately spat out the coffee I was drinking. The chief of Kakuchi Station?
はい、そのまさかなんですよ。
What can I say? My man got game.
山沖署長さんがまどかちゃんのお相手ってわけです。
Such a weird thing. I love how this is like. I guess obviously it's more a focus in this art than the last art, just because Madoka's a real character, and we're looking more on the police side of the story rather than the Natsumi side. But it is still really funny.
だから赤坂さん、彼女に変なことしたら間違いなく血を見ますよ。
いや、そんなの考えたこともないですよ。
But it was truly shocking. Chief Yamotai was younger than Oishi-san, but he should still be in his 50s at least. Plus, even in his youth, he was a well-regarded detective with sharp eyes and a sharper sword. Though you never guessed it from the way he taught. And that man was Madoka-san's fiancé.
まあその件は今度ゆっくりお話しするとして、どうでしたかそちらの方は。
Give him the
馬屋
deets.
魂の何軒かの家、どこも留守でしたが、畠山という家ではかろうじて家の人の顔を見ることができました。と言ってもほとんど門前払いですが。
ああ、畠山さんね。確か70過ぎのじいさんがいる家でしたっけ。で、何か話してくれましたか。
It was pretty sussy there. Oishi-san held a piece of paper in his hand and placed a check mark next to the entry for Hatakeyama family. I shook my head and took a sip of my coffee, then continued.
やはりというか、何も話してはくれませんでした。収穫はゼロです。
I don't know, the kid wanted to talk to them. That's kind of a lead, if you can get her to talk.
そうですか。
予想はしていたつもりでしたが、老人だけでなく若夫婦も子供もです。誰も堅くなに口を開こうとしない。
どこの家も同じですね。
口を聞くところが
まるで疫病神みたいな態度ですか。
Yep.
ええ、まあ、
I slowly nodded to confirm Oishi-san's observation. Right, they were treating us as though I was bringing a curse upon them.
その話を聞きに行って自分がたたり扱いとはね。なシャレにもなりませんな。
Oishi-san let out a dry laugh. It seemed like he'd been through virtually the same thing.
何かどこかの方から口止めがかかっているとか。
それはわかりません。もっとよく調べてみないと。それよりも気になったのが魔除けですね。
魔除け？
ちょっと他では聞いたことのないような薄気味悪い祝詞を唱えたり、外壁にお社様の文字を書きつけたり、面用というか。
Kazuma Hatateyama's prayers resounded in my ears and wouldn't cease.
お社の大神、お社の大神、これのかむどこにおわす、かけまくも賢き、お社の大神。
The voice I heard from the back of the house, it didn't sound like worship for Oyashiro-sama. It sounded like a desperate attempt to ward off a curse. And that wasn't the only strange thing. When I visited that house, one thing immediately jumped into my eyes. Those life-sized human-shaped paper figures, with the names of each family member written on them. It looked like a ritual from an ancient shrine or some occult sorcery, not something you'd see in a small residential district. I mean, yeah. Plus, they were hanging in sets, all fluttering together. The big ones? Yep, I guess you saw the same thing. They're all going in like Hado mode. After like the big explosion, I guess the elderly people that believe in the curse are doing like the jitter rituals to ward off the curse. Or did I say that right? When the village got destroyed by the disaster, it like triggered them into like emergency mode. I remembered it too. The eerie set of the walls covered in writing. Kazuma Hatateyama's prayers still echoed in my ears, and those same words were written on the wall too. What did those words mean? What was he trying to say? I had no idea. However, seeing his persistence made me feel even more terrified than bewildered. Just then, a voice called from outside the break room, so we both turned our heads. Chief Inspector Manai had just come back from an investigation carrying a large paper bag. Hello. Okay. Oh, she just whipped out the bag of burgers. After I encouraged her, Chief Inspector Manai said excuse me, then sat on the chair across from me and spread the paper bag open. I was startled by the moment I saw it. There are at least 10 hamburgers in that oversized bed. No, 20. No, even more than that. It was completely packed. Called it hamburger enjoyer. Man, imagine downing 20 hamburgers.
お腹すいた。
Actually insane. I guess like if they're McDonald's sized like hamburgers. I mean, it's still insane, but at least kind of doable. I don't know. Never tried.
どうしました、赤坂警視。
Don't be rude and stare while she's eating.
いや、別に。
Is she gonna eat all that by herself? Feeling it's best not to say anything more, I turned to Oishi-san. He gave a forced smile while shrugging his shoulders. This was apparently a normal portion size for Chief Inspector Minai.
あ、すみません警視。実は歯医者に行ってて昼食取りそびれてしまったので。
Get that cavity fixed? No, that's not the point.
やっぱりハンバーガーが好きな女って変ですか？
Honestly, more power to her. The fact that she can keep her figure downing hamburgers like that is incredibly impressive. I would have no problem with it. That wasn't it either. However, Oishi-san said no, that it would be best not to pursue the subject, so I kept quiet. Even though she was quite the high-spirited lady, I felt confident that I had more stamina than anyone in the public security office, but she could easily blow me away. I suddenly stared at Chief Inspector Minai as she unwrapped another hamburger. After hearing her story earlier, I couldn't help but feel conflicted over it. She and Madoka-san were orphans, so the only family each other had. Right, because their father died. Living in that sort of relationship all these years and suddenly dealing with her sister's marriage, and to make it worse, the groom was her boss? Would I be able to keep a clear head if I were in that situation? It's very hard to picture yourself in that situation, honestly. But I don't blame Minai. It's weird. By Minai, I mean Tomoe. That was a stupid question. Of course not. And Madoka-san had to choose between breaking off her marriage to Chief Yamokai or agreeing the marriage without the blessing of her only living family member. It was such a lonely story. But since I had no personal connection to Chief Inspector Minai, I didn't have a right to persuade her otherwise. For now, it seemed only time could solve this problem. I wonder what Oishi-san thought of this dispute.
何か？
あ、いえ。そういえば、見ない警部。何か変わったことはありましたか？
なんというか、あったというよりも変わったことばかりで少々面食らっています。
And Chief Inspector Minai skillfully flipped open her notebook, and with one hand, and provided us with a brief report on our investigation. There were some small differences, but it was nearly identical to my own experience, so I only half listened. However,
あ、そうそう。自分が今日調べてきた対象者の中には、生贄の儀式をやっている家がありました。
生贄？
obviously she's not saying a human sacrifice, guys. Relax. That was the first I'd heard of this.
身代わりというものでしょうか。鶏か何かの鳥を屠殺して、
Oh, just some burbs.
庭の木に吊るしていました。
That's what we call the Filipino witch style. It's what they do, like shamans do in Southeast Asia.
住民たちの話を聞いていると、何でもたたりを代わってくれる。
And then, if I was neighbors, I would actually be creeped out. You know, as a neighbor, I'm pretty lenient to anyone, loud noise or whatever. But when I start seeing dead chickens hanging in their yard, I'm probably like, yeah, that's a little much. At least in Canada. Obviously, it's different in other places.
詳しい話は直接聞くことができなかったんですが、ちょうど木に鳥の死体を吊るしている現場に出くわしましたので、壁越しに様子を伺ってきました。そしたら老人の声が聞こえてきまして、許しておくれ、わしらの身代わりだ、許し、 要請を受けて保健所には連絡したんですが、鳥だと疾病の場合もありますから注意くらいしかできないそうです。
I mean, I guess it's true. It's not like they're killing seagulls or something. They are chickens, but I don't know. That's still funny to me.
自分としてもどうにも対応に困った次第で。
I couldn't picture this. I could picture this scene in my mind. In a dimly lit room, holding a still living chickens down and offering them at the altar. The birds sorrowfully cried out, begging for their lives. I'm not making crying chicken noises. But the old man didn't care about the cries of the animals, and he wouldn't stop. So he lifted the kitchen knife overhead. Sobbing, scared chicken noises. A deluge of sticky blood came flowing out. The old man opened his eyes wide as he repeated, The old man's words mixed together with the prayer I heard outside the Hatakeyama house. We're gonna have to fast forward this one. We've heard it like 5 times today. Those old men recited their prayers that they took the lives of weak, innocent creatures.
写真もいくつか撮ってきましたので、今現像に回して。
Honestly, I know Atazata's freaking out right now, but I just think the idea of having corpses of chickens in your backyard's weird. I don't really care about chickens dying. I'm sorry. I eat chicken a lot, okay?
出来上がったら
I don't slaughter them myself, but I don't know. I know it's traumatic for him, but for me it's just like, yeah. Just weird that he's hanging them, not the act of killing chickens. Even so, were the people who left Hinamizawa really only doing this to keep the curse from coming for them? And could there really be a so-called curse in the first place? And if so, why would they be cursed? I mean, that's just... You don't know the lore? They left Hinamizawa, that's why they're cursed. Basic... That's Hinamizawa 101, Akasaka, come on. I didn't understand the blind faith of these old men was a total mystery. Back to reality. Chief Inspector Manai looked at me with a dubious expression. She must have noticed my face darkening while I managed the sacrificial ceremony from her report.
すみません。薄気味の悪い話を聞かせてしまって。
あ、いえ。むしろ、お社様のたたりがここまで得体の知れないものだったのかと、どうにも釈然としなくって。
Standing next to me, Oishi-san turned toward me while scratching the back of his head. Then he nodded with a wry smile.
お社様って神様は本来村に住む人間が結束するためのただの象徴的な存在であったはずなんですがね。人形とか生贄とかそんな古臭い祭礼の作法、もうとっくの昔に廃れたもんだと思っていましたよ。
あったんですか？以前は。
Yep.
バ
Wow.
カ様の時代にね。
The Watanashi stuff I guess he's
か
referencing.
れこれ40年以上も昔。
40 years ago.
お前ちゃんも生まれていなかった頃の話ですよ。
It sounded so removed from reality. Why were those fossilized customs being dug up now?
まあそんな様子じゃ。私たちに情報提供
Alright, he's referring to the rituals happening right now?
ここも沖宮と同じかもしれませんね。
いえ。それでも少しは収穫がありました。移り住んだのは5年前なんですが、ひなみ沢に在住していた祖父を去年に引き取った畠山という家に行ってきまして。
Yay.
畠山。
Dun dun dun. Hearing a familiar name, I raised my head. After double checking, that was definitely the house I visited today.
そうだったんですか。すみません。 うっかり同じところを回ってしまったみたいで。
Oh, maybe that's why they're on edge.
いえ、それはいいんです。それよりよく話が聞けましたね。確かあそこは二人ともかなり非協力的で。
ええ、息子夫婦は全然ダメでした。ただ近くの公園で見かけた女の子が偶然その家のお孫さんということで、
Mm-hmm.
少しだけ話ができたんです。
Don't know why Atasata didn't bring this up. A girl? Hearing that reminded me of the look on the face of the little girl who gazed up at me like she wanted to tell me something. That must have been Aoi.
ええ、その葵ちゃんです。公園で友達にいじめられて泣いていたんですよ。
いじめられていた。
はい。
For being Hinamizawa? Chief Inspector Manai furrowed her brow and nodded. I could imagine why without needing to ask. Or, yeah, the house decorations, again, pretty strange. Someone probably saw those strange decorations at Aoi's house and told all of her friends, so they started making fun of her. An adult would be able to endure that. They'd even be able to acknowledge their role in the ordeal and take responsibility for it. But how could a child be responsible for any of this? It was a complete irrational train of thought.
それでどんな内容ですか？
はい。それが
According to Chief Inspector Manai, Kazuma was undergoing rehab at Psyche Care and Welfare Center, but he came home last weekend at Yoshito's request.
葵ちゃんの話ではどうやらカズマ氏の誕生日だったようです。
Hmm.
心身の状態も良好ということもあり、よしこ氏の仕事の都合も偶然ついたので、彼は2週間の期限付きで家に戻ってきたとの話でした。
When he first came back, he spent time at the park with his grandchildren, visited the neighbors, and played shogi with old friends. It seemed like there was no significant changes. But a few days later, the Great Hinamizawa disaster struck. Kazuma's behavior completely changed after that day.
本当は今日センターに戻る予定だったのですが、明日に延期したようですね。今の状態で戻せば最悪入所を拒否される可能性もありますから。
After saying that, Chief Inspector Manai handed us a report on Hatakeyama's family. She must have put that together before coming here. That means if she goes to that care center tomorrow, she might be able to speak with Kazuma directly.
見ない警部。
Dun dun dun.
次回は私たちも同行した方がよろしいでしょうか？
And we'll get the scene where Natsumi's like, don't do it.
あ、いえ、
Maybe.
私もここに来るまで迷っていたんですが、
Never mind.
どうも葵ちゃんの話ではカズマ氏は少々自閉的になっているそうなので、
Oh, just rejecting us to
私一
come.
人で聞き込みをしたいと思います。お二人の話を聞く限り、ひなみ沢の人たちのお社様信仰は相当深いようなので、センターの関係者も含めて慎重に行うつもりです。
そうですか。
ただ手応えがありましたらすぐにポケベルへ連絡します。すみませんが、赤坂警視と大石さんは残りの別件をお願いできますか？
I mean, it didn't really go well for you last time, but
わかりました。
maybe it should be less forceful.
も
And
し
if she
何か
goes
ありま
by
したら
herself,
いつでも呼んでください。
she won't bring Fujita like last time. Chief Inspector Manai handed each of us a pager and I slipped mine into my pocket. Then she said she had another matter to attend to, so she left the break room.
すごいですね。
すごいでしょう。
I looked over the beautifully flattened paper bag full of hamburger wrappers in the trash can.
見かけによらず、健胆家なんですね。
Even so, how can so many burgers fit inside her slender body? And not just that, how was she able to continue eating like that while talking about sacrificial rituals?
大した女性です。本当に。
いや、まったく。あの子を見ていると、父親のことを思い出しますよ。
父親？見ない警部のお父さんも警察の方だったんですか？
Uishi-san nodded, then stopped to light a cigarette. His eyes narrowed in thought, and I could see the smoke puff out as he began to speak.
過激派の山荘籠城事件でご一緒しましたが、捜査員
Oh.
全員が長期戦でへばっている中、一人だけカップラーメンを何杯もかっくらってね。胃袋が鉄でできているんじゃないかと本気で思いましたよ。しかもその翌日の突入で、裏口から逃げ出した主犯格の一人をぶん投げて確保しちまって、警視庁にもすごい奴がいるもんだと感心したもんです。生きていれば赤坂さんの上司になっていたかもしれませんね。絶対こいつは偉くなるって確信してたんですが。
I caught a hint of loneliness in Uishi-san's tone. So apparently Chief Inspector Manai's father was a public safety officer, and he had already passed away.
いやいや、すみませんね。柄にもなくしんみりしちゃいましたよ。
いえ、そんな。大石さん。南井警部のお父さんは亡くなられたのですか？
ねえ、事故です。いや、むしろ殉職だと思っています。
殉職？それって。
But just then, a Tateyama massacre? Maybe? Suddenly an alarm went off in the room. We received a report from the prefectural police headquarters about a new incident. Yep. Too late. Climbing out of the car, Chief Inspector Manai looked up at the house where a crime occurred, while grinding her teeth and clenching her fists. However, she quickly returned to her senses and started barking orders to her subordinates running around the crime scene. Hey, Fujita, we haven't seen him this arc, I think. What's up, buddy? No entry tape was already installed, and the mobile investigators from Prefectural Police Headquarters had already begun on the on-site investigation. Eventually, one of the detectives who entered the house ran over to Chief Inspector Manai. The elderly detective named Hayami silently shook his head toward Chief Inspector Manai, and then a stretcher covered a white cloth came rolling out of the entrance of the house. It was the worst-case scenario. Uishi-san remained silent and continued staring at the entrance of the house. No way. I never thought I would have expected this situation to take such a sudden turn. One member of the mobile investigation team passed by me and rushed over to a parked police car, then grabbed the wireless receiver and began a report. Just seeing how things looked out here, it was clear how much of a disaster their worksite must be. So obviously this is different than, because he was at home and not in the center. The commotion had consumed the surrounding cityscape. Spectators were flocking to the scene, rushing to see what happened. Uishi-san and I could only stand by and watch the investigators running around like that. And that made Natsumi less crazy. Yo, it is a kind of a more blessed Natsumi route. We already saw it before, but this helps. Because she got the good career meeting. Looking back, I saw a familiar house. The Hatakeyama house that I visited earlier today. Those eerie decorations I saw out of the corner of my eye made the scene all the more peculiar. It looked like there was a TV reporter in front of the crowd, holding a camera and beginning an on-site broadcast. So he was in a different house. It looked like a live broadcast. Despite all the chaos and excitement, the reporter remained calm and
被
articulate.
害者は畠山一馬さんで、小
Yeah.
畑容疑者の向かいの家に住んでおりました。なお、小畑容疑者は犯行後に自ら凶器を喉に突き立て自殺したとのことです。
And then the next words caused us to shudder.
あ、たった今続報が届きました。小畑容疑者は7年前柿内市に移住するまでは、先
Mm-hmm.
日大災害のあったひなみ沢村の隣町沖宮に住んでいて、畠山さんとは数少ない友人関係にあったそうです。この事件について警察の発表は、
They didn't know? I thought they fucking got all the registration shit for all their residents. 7 years ago. Oh yeah, because they only did 5. Investigation, this only goes back 5 years. Do we need to alter our investigation to include people who left Hinamizawa before the dam conflict began in 1978? This is serious. It was difficult enough just going back 5 years. How far back do we need to look? The expanding scope of the investigation suddenly made me feel nauseous.
大石さん、
Before long, Chief Inspector Manai finished preparing arrangements and came back to us.
勝間氏の家族には被害が及んでいないようです。ただ、事情聴取を行うには動揺が激しくて、なんとも。
My fist clenched wildly, and I began to tremble. Then right there,
さん、大変だ。こっちへ来てくれ。
早見さん、
Princess. Seeing Detective Hayami's pale face, Chief Inspector Manai opened her eyes wide. Then, after glancing at us strangers, he whispered something in her ear.
それは本当ですか？
間違いない。菅谷には山村課長と高屋敷が、沢渡りには刑事二課の連中が向かったらしい。
More crimes?
いずれも死傷者が出て、容疑者は犯行現場で自殺している。
菅谷って、今日私の言った。
Oh no. Them visiting caused the paranoia, caused the syndrome to activate?
まさかそんなことって。
Chief Inspector Manai's eyes opened wide, and her lip began to tremble. Her skin went pale, and she couldn't hide her reaction.
どうしたのですか、見ない警部。
菅谷で一家無理心中事件が起こったそうです。自宅に放火して被疑者は家族ともども焼死したとのこと。他にも沢渡では介護センターの大浴場で数名を巻き込み、自らも死亡。
それってまさか。
菅谷は私が調査に行ったところです。そして沢渡は、
私ですね。おそらくそこは私が会ったばあさんのいる介護センターでしょう。
やっぱり。じゃあ今日起こった事件の容疑者はみんなひなみ沢出身者ってことなの？なんで？
警部？
Overwhelmed with shock, Chief Inspector Manai repeatedly pounded on the wall beside her, then tilted her head back and groaned. After seeing that, her team of detectives came running over, but she held up a hand to say, "I'm fine." Then she shook her head as she walked with Detective Hayami to the police car.
大石さん、これは一体どういうことでしょう。
どうですかね。赤坂さん、偶然だと思われますか？
Via literal and crazy coincidence. My heart was shouting, "There's no way this could be a coincidence." Maybe my heart was shouting loud enough that Oishi-san could hear it. But still, how could I answer that? Would I be admitting the curse is real if I said it wasn't a coincidence? Impossible. That can't be possible. Dun dun. Sets for you guys. I know all the answers. I mean, it kind of sucks because they are trying their hardest, but they did kind of cause it. Though it looks like they were all on edge anyways, and it happened eventually. But they probably accelerated it with their visits. Anyways, tip me up. Tip me. Saito. I didn't even read it. Saito something mental report. Name redacted 14. Gender female. Redacted Otonomiya Shishabone City. Attended middle school in the city. Medical exams intense. Blood testing was performed to identify the cause of sudden fainting symptoms during everyday activity. Okay, so this is someone we don't know. If they're going to Otonomiya school, I mean, it could have been Shion. Oh, I mean, in the city. But if they live in Otonomiya, then it could only be Shion, but she didn't have fainting during everyday activity. Originally investigated by Shishibone General Hospital Department of Medicine on the suspicion of blood disease, but due to the sudden onset of migraines of unknown origin, the doctors advised her to enroll in psychosomatic counseling. That's what this is called. Diagnosis: moderate to severe autonomic ataxia. Due to the risk of chronic symptoms, hospitalization is strongly recommended. Planning to begin pharmacotherapy after carefully explaining the circumstances to both parents and obtaining their consent. Also, considering the psychological stress on the patient herself, the explanation to be provided is the treatment of blood disease. Other notes: personal information is to be strictly protected. S. The text below that point is unreadable, scribbles in German. What? I was trying to say, is that Tatano? Because she does that shit. But I thought this was the hospital. Why would she be saying this shit? I'm confused. 14-year-old. Shion's older than that. It doesn't really hit any age range. Besides maybe Rena, but she doesn't live in Otonomiya. Natsumi? Maybe from back then? It's possible. Could be Natsumi. Anyways, good epi. Some memes into some serious stuff. As always, it's been fun. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subbed, consider subbing. Blah, blah, blah. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and I will see you next time with some more Kageboushi. Until then, see you.